We loaded the world countries into SQL Server. However, it'd be interesting in order to apply all the files we created and get some kind of useful use out of them. I decided I want to build a SalesForce hierarchy and use some of those shapefiles we have created with it, so you can display it in whether you do it on a map solution or not. So in order to figure out how do I build a SalesForce, it's hard to get names and everything together. So what I decided to do, I noticed that in SQL Server, there is the AdventureWorks database. Now, it's pretty minimal. It's not like a real SalesForce you would encounter in a big enterprise because it's very few people. But go to this AdventureWorks 2017 database, and you go to tables. This is the data warehouse version of AdventureWorks. So it's structured as a data warehouse where you can build cubes, OLAP cubes. So if you notice, they use DIM prefixes for these tables because they're dimension tables. And then you have fact tables, meaning the key from each one of these dimension could be put into these fact tables. So for example, you can see that here they use the product key, and in the, let's say, the internet sales fact table, you can see they use the different dimensions and they get that primary key from those and they put them together here. So it allows you to drill in and build an OLAP cube. So what we're interested in is to look into this fact internet sales. So what I can do, I'm going to open up a new Visual Studio project here and drag that over here. And if you look at it here, this is what the version will look like. Let me minimize this other one here. That is when I actually complete it, but I want to show you kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to search for analysis service. So I'm just going to create this one here, for example. You can just leave it that name for now. This is just for temporary use anyway. So it opens up here like this. We need to have a pointer to the data source. So let me say new data source. Next, I'm going to use this one here. So I'm going to say next, and I'm going to inherit. Next, finish. Okay, so I got a data source here. So that looks like this. And now what I want to do, I want to create a data source view. So I'm going to say new, next, and it points to that data source. Next, grab the internet sales, which is down here, this one. Double click on that. And you have an option to say add related tables. So I'm going to say, and it picks out those that are related based on keys. So you can see all of these guys are there. There's one more table I want to bring in, and that's the employee table. So I'm going to grab that as well. So now I got all the tables I want to use, and I'm going to say finish. When I look at it now, it's going to look like this. And this is what the other project that I showed you looks like. From here, I want to look at the data. So if I look at the employee table, I'm going to right click and say explore data. And here you can see it has the different people that are part of the SalesForce. So the titles, a bunch of information about these guys, and base rates, sales, whatever it is, and department names, and I have even some pictures of these guys. So if if I drag this, you can see here is one guy here. Here's another, same guy. I can take it. Each employee here has a linkage, sales territory. So it has this unique roundabout connection here because an employee is reporting to another employee. So that's why you see the self join here. Now, what we also want to look at is the sales territory. And if you look here now, we got Northwest, Northeast, and this is in the United States. So if you drag it down and look at this image field over here, you get an idea of the area they're covering. So Northwest territory is consisting of these states, and Northeast consists of these states, etc. And then, of course, we have Canada. Looks like this. We have some couple of European countries like France, you can see here, and Germany, etc. Australia and United Kingdom. So what we want to do, we want to use this information but we want to use our own shape files to build these representations that is in this image here. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to create these shapes from the already existing shapes that we have created before, such as the world countries. We can get Germany, Australia, Canada, France, United Kingdom. And we also have a map of the United States that we brought in from the Census Bureau we can use to generate these representations. And that's what we're going to be doing next, so you can see how that's done. So I'm used this project only to illustrate the shape representations that are related to these territory regions. So we're going to build these shape files. The US has a few of them: Northeast, Central, Southwest, Southeast, and Northwest, as you can see in the picture here. What I did was I opened QGIS, I brought in all the states, and I made a copy. So here's the states. I made it, and I called it US SalesForce. So what I did, in order to make it look like this, I first of all put the label to be the state FP. When you double click here, you're getting this screen coming up. And what I did was I went in, let's do this first. First, let me explain how I did this. So if you open up the US SalesForce here, and I go to open attribute tables, it looks something like this. You can sort by this state FP. So when I sort, it becomes 01, 02, and so forth. In my image here, I've done most of these representations already. I have not done the Southwest. So as you can see from the picture for the Southwest, if I minimize this part and I bring up Southwest, you can see it here. So it's these four shapes. And if you look at these four shapes and you compare it over here, you can see it's 06, 04, 35, and 48 for Texas. So that's what that image is showing. So in order to create that region, what I did was I went into Open Attribute Table. I sorted it by state FP. I clicked this little button up here for editing. Now it's edited. I added this field, the territory field. So what I can do is I can say that, and in order to add a field, you click on this new field like this, and you fill in territory. I made it a string text here, and I made it a certain length of 50 or something. So that's how I added the territory field here. And then I went in and I selected some states, and then I updated it. So let me show you how I do that for the Southwest. The method is similar for all of them. So let me just do that quick here, since that's the last one. So I need 06, 04, 35. So what I do is I go here and I select 06, and now you can see it lights up over here. I need 04. So now you can see this one gets lighted up. I need 35 and I need 48. So let me scroll down. 35 and 48. So those are the selected states that I'm generating here. Then what I want to do is I want to choose territory like this, and I want to create for West, I think it's called, just to verify, because I want it to be similar like I have in my Q project here. So it is Southwest, just like this. Okay, so now that I got that one set up here on the territory, I can say update selected. And when I do that, you can see it shows up here. So all the highlighted ones now you can see are Southwest, Southwest, and so forth. So now I can uncheck the editing, and I'm going to save the changes, and I'm going to close this. And now you can see the attribute table. Let me make sure it is deselected. Okay, so it's not deselected yet. Let me refresh and deselect it. You can see Central, Northeast, Northwest, and Southeast is kind of in categories right here. So what I can do is I can double click here. I bring up this one, and I chose this categorized selection here under the symbology. I choose the territory. I wanted to add another category here. So in order for it to show up here, what we want to do is we want to double click on this US SalesForce. You bring up this, And if you look here, you have these categories. You can see the 4 that I generated before, but you don't see the Southwest that I just did. In order for that to show up, you just click this Classify button. And now you can see Southwest showed up. What I can do is I can get rid of some of this other stuff here, for example. I get rid of this one. That's basically it. So now I can say Apply and OK. And now you can see these 4 states, 6, 0, 4, 35, and 48 shows up in orange. So now I categorized all these guys. So what we can do now is to make it into individual shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a function called dissolve. So we only generate the outline of these shapes, meaning the outermost portion of the polygons. So in order to do that, we can go to Vector. We can go to this geoprocessing tool, to the dissolve menu, and then what we want to choose is the US SalesForce input layer. Choose whatever field we want to dissolve it by. So we want to dissolve it by territory like this. Then we run it, select close, and take a look at it. So notice now you can see here's the Northwest. You can see it in one shape. Here's the one we just did with the Texas, with California, whatever state there was here. So we have dissolved it by the actual SalesForce groupings that we wanted to use. So that's how you can do it. There's a couple of extra ones that we're not going to be using. But currently now you can see here's the Northwest shape up here. So if you remember, if you look at the Northwest, it looks something like this. So that's this shape here. But if you go to the US SalesForce here, and you go to the attribute table, open attribute table, you can see you have all the data here for the different states. So basically what I did was I opened up Excel, I selected everything, Control A in this attribute table, and I opened up an Excel workbook, and I basically pasted this stuff in here, and then I removed several of the columns here, as you can see up here. I kept the territory, I kept the state FP, I kept the STUSPC, PS, which is the abbreviation state, and the name. So I kept those, and you can see them here. And then I saved it as a CSV file with this name. After that, what I did was I went into SQL Server Management Studio, and I created a table based on those 4 fields like this. Then I did a BCP, so I bulk insert into the table, which is this one here. This is the place I put the file, the CSV file. And the first row will be the second one because the first one has headers. I use a comma separated file at delimiter, and I don't think I have any field quote. I just put it in there, and there's some row terminator here. And then I just basically ran this, created the table, ran the bulk insert. And once it's done, what I did was, let me see if I can find that table, this one here. So when you select from it, it looks like this. So here you have all this stuff. What I did after that was to create a query in where I used the SQL version of the dissolve function. Control A, and I based it on the geometry column. You use something called union aggregate, and I'm passing in the geometry field. But because I have an inner join between 2 tables, one is this ADOS SalesForce that I just loaded in, those 4 columns. And then I have the US states, which is basically the geometry representation of the US states themselves. Then I link on the state FP, and the state FP will be these guys, okay? Then what I do, I group by the territory, because remember the territory, central, 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 and so forth. And by grouping it on that field and creating this union aggregate here, when you run it, it's going to look like this. And you're getting these 5 different territories. So spatial results, when you open that, you can see here, and selecting territory and zooming in, here's Northwest, Southwest, Central, Northeast, and Southeast. The rest of these guys in between are those that we didn't have any SalesForce territory linked to. So that's how you can do it in SQL Server if you rather prefer to do it there.